queens out there. Just want to remember that we are strong. We're all strong. And even though, there are lots of biases out there, we can all work together and overcome the challenges. So thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Caroline, and I'm one of the founders of Licala Natural Skincare Products. I'm also a serving primary school teacher. I have taught
in our devices.
I have taught in Jamaica.
Everything has something to do with engineering. And engineering has been part of that journey. And we see it all around us every day and interact with it. And yet so many people have a misconception of what engineering is.
Can we ask everyone to mute their mic?
When I told them I'm an engineer.
What did you say?
Hello, good evening. Can you all hear me? If you can hear me, just
hear that, Caroline. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll just start again. I just want to say welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I just want to say happy International Women's Day to everyone, to all the queens and the empresses out there. My name is Caroline, and I'm one of the founders of Licala Natural Skincare Products. I am also a serving primary school teacher. I have taught in the UK and I've taught in Jamaica. This afternoon is about us. It's about us women. And it's about us breaking the bias, breaking the gender bias. Now, today is International Women's Day, and we have some fantastic women who will be sharing some of their experiences with us and how we can overcome these challenges. Now, just before I present the speech to you, just a little housekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the question at the bottom of your screen. We have 5 speakers. Unfortunately, Latoya Francis, due to work commitments, she was not able to join us this afternoon, but she has sent a video with her speech. Okay, so now without further ado, we will turn over to our first speaker, and our first speaker this afternoon is going to be Fiona Smalls. But before I bring Fiona Small on, I'll just read a bit about Fiona, her bio. Now, Fiona Small is a multi-award winning social entrepreneur. She's a business owner, international keynote speaker, and an online influencer. She's also a qualified parenting practitioner and LMP coach. Fiona launched the Young Moms Support Network, CIC, in 2011, and the impact of the services provided has been far-reaching and impacted countless women to date. One of her most significant achievements has been attending a top-level forum at 10 Downing Street to raise awareness of the effects that modern society has on young mothers. She also collaborates with a diverse range of stakeholders and the FTSE 100 corporations. Fiona has been awarded numerous community awards, including the Honoring Inspirational Mothers Award and Mother of Magnificence Award from iCare Global. She recently received an award from NatWest Wise 100 Women in Social Enterprise 2020. Last year, Fiona published her first ebook, which is available on Amazon. She passionately supports female founders, and through Young Mom Support Network, has developed a range of creative online initiatives, hosting virtual events and summits where women can come together, share live experiences, and receive practical help and support. Fiona is well sought after, and the increasing demand for her skills and expertise has initiated the recent launch of the Fiona Small Bespoke Business Academy. This teaches college students about social enterprise and how to become a sustainable startup in business. Fiona hosts events and is also a podcaster, YouTube presenter, and a regular spokesperson on London TV and radio. She is a keynote and public empowerment coach who focuses on building confidence in women. Fiona is not only passionate about supporting women in business, but also recognizes the importance of establishing a robust foundation for the owners of moms, for the well-being of moms in enterprises too. Fiona coaches and advises new business owners and is available for consultations, collaborations, and engagements. If you'd like to contact Fiona, please get in touch with me. Now, without further ado, I'm going to present Fiona. Thank you so much, Fiona.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you. I so need to shorten that bio. Sorry, ladies, for that essay. I need to send you a shorter one just to make it succinct. But hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this evening. International Women's Day means a lot. I'm glad that there's so many here. I can see we've got 32 on the screen. So, you know, welcome everybody. As much as, you know, it's interesting when you hear your bio being read out. Sometimes I think to myself, wow, you know, that sounds good, because obviously in terms of, you know, the forum that we're on now, it's important for people to just know what qualifies me to be a speaker in this space. But can I just, before saying anything, I am an ordinary woman, just like every single one of you on here, that had an idea, was really passionate about wanting to challenge a narrative, a stereotype that society gives. And here I am 11 years in with a business that has scaled nationally in the UK. You know, I've built a team of 5, but this started from an idea. So I just want to, like, before I even go into anything, just encourage every single one of you that might be sitting on your ideas or might be having just something that's in you and you're thinking, do you know what, I really, really need to birth this, or I'd love to do something. You know, the change starts with us. And oftentimes, you know, there's a saying that says we need to be the change that we want to see. That's all I've done. And do you know what? Everything that's kind of manifested, all of the successes that have followed, you know, as a result of this journey, it's been, as I would say, a result of my obedience, my passion, my determination, and my belief in wanting to see something that I've ultimately knew needed to be in place. So I just wanted to put that out there, because sometimes people can hear a bio and think, wow, this organization weren't given to me. This idea was just something that I built up. There was nothing was handed over. It's just something that started from an idea, a little seed that I had. I nurtured it, watered it, and it started to grow, blossom, and now bearing fruit. So I just wanted to say that. Going back to the topic, so my question is how to change the gender bias. And as I was reflecting on the question, I was saying to myself, do you know what? How to change the gender bias is a really tricky one, especially for us as women, because when you think about it from a little girl, you know, we from the storybooks, it's always showed us about, you know, we're going to find our prince, we're going to live happily ever after. And to a lot of us, that's been the goal, is to kind of find that prince, have our like beautiful home, lovely children, happily ever after. Some of us has realized that, you know, we kissed a few frogs, they didn't turn into princes, right? And now we're here thinking, oh, you know, they actually sold us a lie. Them storybooks, them fairy tales weren't real. Like, we're living in real world. So I think when we're thinking about how to change the bias, do you know, it actually starts with us in terms of that change. We have to change the way that we look at everything, and I'm talking others. Sometimes we look at the Joneses and think, oh, and I've done it, I'm guilty. Can I put my hands up and say I'm guilty of it? I'm like, gosh, man, why couldn't that be my story? Sometimes you look at, like, even social media can oftentimes really sell you this dream. Everyone's living their best life, everyone's got it also together. You can look at it and be like, well, not really my story, but you know, would love that to be me. And sometimes we've just actually just got to be satisfied with who we are and equally recognize that we too have the abilities, we have the capabilities, we have, sometimes it's not even, we have this self-doubt. We, you know, I always talk about, you know, the self-talk, the what the mind sometimes can feed us, and how if we're not careful, it will stagnate us, it will stop us, just for the sheer fact that some of us are living with you're too, you're not, you know, back in the day when they used to tell us you can't do this, or don't be so stupid, or why you would want to do that. We're still dealing with some of the people that didn't nurture and support us and give us the kind of tools or that just encouragement. So when we're dealing with that bias, sometimes you might look at things and think, oh, well, I'll need a man to do that, or because I haven't got a husband, I won't be able to do that, or they'll judge me because of, and I've been in those seats, I've been in those places where it's like people can sometimes say to you, so how comes you're not married then, and how comes you're not there, as if to say it's a disease. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or it's an illness. It's like, well, my prince just ain't come yet, but he coming, he on his way. But do you know what, sometimes we have to say to ourselves, in terms of that bias, where has it come from? When we want to kind of show up in certain spaces and represent as females, as women, and want to be seen as equals, because I think there's also a very thin line with it, especially for some of us who are wearing two hats. And I'll speak from a mother's perspective who is the head of the household with two children, a boy included, and trying to kind of make sure, and I've got a girl and a boy, trying to make sure the balance in my home, because it's so easy for me to say to my daughter, you know, put the fold of clothes away, do the dishes, empty the dishwasher, you know, go and season this, organize the clothes. And then sometimes I think to myself, no. The other day I had to say to my son, and it's easy, and I'm sure for those of you who have got brothers, I've got a brother and there's two sisters of us, the boys sometimes get away with quite a lot, and this is traditionally we're dealing with. So when we're breaking these biases, it starts with me. And the reason why I'm starting with it from this perspective, I could have gone from workplace perspective, but I want us to shine the light on how are we doing things as women, even as single women who are raising boys. Like, I've had to correct myself. Not everything has to be my daughter. My son has two hands too, and ultimately, when he grows and finds himself a young lady, I don't want the young lady saying, boy, your mum really sport you, and why did your mum, you know, can't lift this, can't do that. You know, sometimes we can tiptoe around these boys because we feel that actually it's the girl's responsibility. And I think when we're trying to like really change that narrative and showcase a very equal balance, which is what we want to see, even when you don't seem to have it yourself. Because in an ideal world, you know, I would have ultimately wanted things to have been different. So there would have been a nice gender balance in my household. So some of the responsibility wouldn't always be on my shoulders. However, it is what it is, and I'm working with what I've got. But it means that I have a responsibility, and I think equally for those of you that are raising, you know, a girl and a boy, you have that responsibility as well, because sometimes it's easy to just allow for the girl to take the load, and it's not always fair. So I wanted to put that out there. And in terms of like, you know, where we're at in society, we have really moved forward. I mean, there's still a lot of work to do. You can see, even when we look at the state of the world right now, I really do believe if we had females sitting around certain tables, more females that were, you know, kind of in power, I'm sure we would come up with a very healthy solution to some of the world problems that we're seeing today. And yeah, I don't want to kind of overly do it. I want to kind of get some interaction as well in terms of, you know, how others see it. And if you've got any questions for me, I'm going to hand over to those that want to ask questions. Caroline, I've been very succinct. I hope you're pleased with me. So if you've got any questions, put them in the chat, or we can make it interactive. I don't know how you'd like to do it, Caroline. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for Fiona. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure, you know, you have given us something that we can take away, you know, and we have some, you know, some mothers here who have sons, daughters. I mean, there's something there that they can take away from what you have just shared with us. I am from a family of 6 girls, 1 boy, and I think sometimes my little brother by my mom's side, and it's the same thing by my father's side, 1 brother as well. I sometimes tend to push my little brother by my mom's side and say, I need to see you, you know, I want him to be a bit more macho, stuff like that. I'm always saying to him. And to be honest, he has, you know, grown up and honed up to it. No, when I see him when I go back home, he's more macho now. I mean, he's in his late 20s. So well done. And thank you so much, Fiona. Are there any questions? If you've got any questions for Fiona, please can you put them in the chat? Okay, we haven't got any questions, so we're going to thank you so much again, Fiona. Oh, sorry, Fiona. Oh, so this, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to our next speaker. And as I've said before, unfortunately, Latoya is not able to join us in person, but she has sent us her speech. I'm just going to read a bit about Latoya. Latoya was born in the Cayman Islands and grew up in Jamaica. Since childhood, she has endeavored to leave this world better, and she found it. She holds a master's in public administration with a focus on public and social policy. She also has a BA in accounting, youth leadership development, and a minor in nonprofit leadership. Latoya has extensive experience in youth development and has held various leadership roles in this capacity. She has also held youth leadership positions in Jamaica and the southeast of London. Her current pursuit involves running and developing Let Me Live, which is a non-profit focused organization focused on youth empowerment through education initiatives and social advocacy programs. Latoya is also one of the founders
Caroline, can't hear. Can't seem to hear you. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. So sorry about that. Sorry. So she's a current member of the Education Council of Cayman Islands and is a member of the Committee for the Promotion of Research and Cayman Scholarship. Latoya continues to be very involved in her local church, Church of God Chapel Frank Sound, where she started attending in 2002. She's a current youth director and a member of the church council. Without further ado, I'm going to turn over to the moderator to ask him to, can you load the video, please?
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Latoya Francis, and I am delighted to be able to share a few words, a few thoughts with you on this webinar celebrating International Women's Day 2022 with the theme Breaking the Bias. I want to say happy International Women's Day to all the women on this webinar that will see this video. You are strong, you are resilient, and you are queen. Remember that always. So as we go straight into it, I don't intend to share long with you. It was my desire to be on the webinar in person, but just due to other calendar commitments and clashes that came up, I'm not able to be there in person, but I'm hoping that this video would help to spark some conversation and thoughts around how we can go about breaking the bias. So when we look at the definition for what a bias is, according to the Oxford Dictionary, it is either prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. And when we think about women and bias in that, context, there's some clear ways that I think, even when we think about our workplace, some of the things that women face biases on or with, and that includes, from the maternal bias, the idea that just because a woman has had a child, she will not be competent or committed enough to her career. You also have the beauty bias, which as a Black woman, I think a lot of times I have had to face even at the very start of my entrance into the workforce coming from high school. I remember going and having an interview, and I had cornrows, neat cornrows, mind you. But at the time, that's all I could afford, as a hairstyle, to be able to go and interview for this job. And I really do believe that because of the way that I looked, I wasn't seen as a good candidate, good fit for that culture at the time. You also are committed enough at the very start of my and I had cornrows, neat cornrows, mind you. But at the time, that's all I could afford, as a hairstyle, to be able to go and interview for this job. And I really do believe that because of the way that I looked, I wasn't seen as a good candidate, good fit for that culture at the time. You also, I think as women, we also face the performance bias, where it's clear that, men are paid more. You hear a lot about the gender pay gap. It's clear that this is something that's not just happening today, that this has been a long-standing fight with trying to get women to be seen as equal. So now to switch to this idea of how do we break the bias, right? So as I thought about this, some of the things that came to mind was, I think there needs to be a willingness for us as individuals to acknowledge our own individual biases and be willing to have courageous conversations about the same. It makes no sense for us to talk about breaking the bias when it comes to men and women in the gender and pay gap, if we're not willing to identify that even as individuals, we have various biases ourselves. Right? I also think when we think about breaking the bias across the board, we need to talk about the leveling of the playing field, making it equal for all, making the barriers of entry limited or non-existent. So that means anyone who is entering that playing field or entering that game is able to play by the same rules and be evaluated by the same rules, regardless of gender, race, or creed. I also think it means going back to the basics, going back to the fact that just because I'm of a different gender does not mean that I am less strong or less able or less capable. So I think if we are able to really go back to the basics of, and I think that ties into my first point, our willingness to accept that we as individuals also have our own individual biases. I also think when we think about breaking the bias, we need to be open to understanding that equity and equality, sometimes, in my opinion, people like to say that they're the same things. And maybe they are in a certain extent, but so I guess my point here is we need to clearly define what equity and equality means for us, and be willing to stand up and have a voice and have a horse in the race, if you will, when it comes to those two terms, because I think the clearer we get on what that means to you and I, what that means within the corporate context, what that means even within just the general existence as human beings, I think that's going to help and go a long way with breaking the bias. I also think that one of the ways that we can break the bias is to be able to fully embrace this idea and the concept of intersectionality. I think that is going to be our way for true inclusion, to realize that as individuals, we're not one-dimensional, we're multi-dimensional beings. So to be able to acknowledge that and realize that, yes, I am Black, but I'm also a woman. And you can also even include sexuality into that mix. You can also include maybe religion and spirituality, maybe culture, and just realizing that as an individual, many times, because we're not able to fully appreciate, I think within certain contexts, the power of intersectionality, we are expected to mute various parts of ourselves. And I think when we are in the position where we are able to acknowledge that we have to be holistic in our approach, I think that's going to be key to breaking the bias. I think in the corporate section, diversity has to be a way of life and not just a corporate fad. Not just because we're now in the street screaming Black Lives Matter or whatever the latest social justice movement is. It has to be the way that as we as organizations, we as companies, as entrepreneurs, the way that we exist, diversity has to be core to who we are and how we do business. I also think that breaking the bias needs to be across the board. Discrimination is discrimination. And I think that also ties back into the idea of intersectionality, right? So if we're going to break the bias between, the gender and the more gender focused area, male versus female, I think we need to also think about just how, I'm trying to find the right word, but just how accepting we are of different types of biases, of different types of discrimination. So for me, breaking the bias has to start with breaking the bias across the board. Discrimination is discrimination regardless of what kind it is. So you have this idea about, color, ability, even age, even culture. In order to break the bias, we need to break the bias across all across all areas. And I also think we need to have conversations around what we mean when we say leveling the playing field. This is one of the first ones that I started with. But again, many times in leveling the playing field, once we get on the field, it's still a us versus them, right? And I think for me, when I think about leveling the playing field, I think I'm still trying to define what this means to me, but I think, there is the concept of meritocracy, being able to move up the ladder based on merit, based on what you're able to do, your ability. But I also know that that's not necessarily fair, because then when you think of people who have different disabilities, so then you have to really check what we mean by ability. And so for me, I do think it's having a conversation and just being very definitive and being very open about what we mean when we say leveling the playing field. And lastly, I do think that in order to do that, there has to be a mindset change. I think that it has to be a mindset change where it's not me versus anybody, but it's me versus me. It's me trying to be the best person. It's me trying to, in every situation, become the best individual that I can in that situation. And again, I just want to thank you guys for taking the time to hear me. And I just ask that if you have any questions, if you want to reach out, for sure, Caroline, she knows how to how to reach out to me. And I really wish that I could have been there in person, but I look forward to watching the replay and hearing all the amazing and thought-provoking conversations that or topics that would have come forth from this dialogue. And again, Likala, I want to thank you for hosting this, and happy International Women's Day to every woman on this call. You are powerful, you are dynamic, and your presence here makes the world a better place. So continue to be fierce and unapologetic in pursuing your God-given calling. And again, thank you again for taking time to hear me, and I wish you guys all the best for the rest of the year.
Okay. Oh, we've got a question there. We've got a hand raised. Sharon, can you
Oh no,
unmute me,
it's not
please?
a hand, it's an applause. That was absolutely brilliant. No, it's an applause. Sorry, it's an
No?
applause.
Go ahead, Sharon.
No, it's an applause. It was absolutely brilliant. She,
Oh.
she was spot on with so many different, touching into so many different things. No, it was really good. It was an applause.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We just want to say a huge thank you to Latoya. She's not here with us tonight, but I'm sure when she watches the replay, she'll be here. And if you have any questions, you can still put them in the chat and I'll pass them on to her. As I said before, she's one of my business partners, so we can all, pass them on to her. So thank you very much for that. Our next speaker is Nicole McIntosh. But before I bring Nicole on, I just want to read a bit about a bit of her bio. Now, Nicole is a registered adult nurse who holds a number of academic qualifications, including a Bachelor of Science, honors degree in Public Administration and Health Studies, a Master of Science degree in Social Research Methods and Health Studies, a Master of Science degree in Nursing Research and Practice Development, and diplomas in Business Administration, Marketing, and in Higher Education Nursing. Nicole is passionate about authentically and strategically leading the provision of high-quality patient care for all and supporting staff to develop professionally and progress in their healthcare careers. Nicole is currently the Regional Head of Nursing and Midwifery at Health Education in England in London. In this role, she works closely with partners, including healthcare providers and higher education institutions across London to educate, develop, and sustain a world-class nursing and midwifery workforce that is fit for the 21st century and beyond. Nicole was awarded an honorary visiting professorship at City University of London in January 2022. Nicole is also a poet, a digital broadcaster, a motivational speaker, entrepreneur, and editorial advisor of the Royal College of Nursing Institute's Nursing Management Journal. She's passionate about lifting as she rises, and to this end, mentors students and nurses from diverse backgrounds to assist them to progress in their careers. She uses poetry as a practitioner of healing hearts in the promotion of health and well-being. She was born and raised in Jamaica, and having worked for 2 decades in the National Health Service, NHS, she proudly shares her experiences as a Black woman and professional within culturally diverse sector, giving honest and insightful reflections in her successful blog. She's immensely proud of her Maroon heritage and launched her Maroon podcast in 2019. It was named as one of the best 15 UK nursing podcasts to follow in 2021, as well as the best 20 UK motivational podcasts in 2021. She was also awarded a fellowship of the Royal Society of Arts in 2019 in recognition of her contribution to nursing, as well as her achievements and championing the benefits of diversity and inspiring others to achieve their goals using a range of mediums. If you'd like to find out anything else about Nicole, you can get in touch with me and I'll forward you her details. So before I'll now ask Nicole to unmute. Over to you, Nicole. Thank you. Nicole?
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think after that, I don't have to say anything in terms of me as a person. You can hear from my accent that I'm from Jamaica. So I'm really honored to be here. Happy International Women's Day. It's really good that we have people like you, Caroline, who are leading the way and pulling us together to meet in these times. I thought I would prepare some slides, but having seen everyone just speaking, I wasn't sure if I was allowed to do my slide. Is that all right? Okay.
You are allowed to. You are allowed to use your slides.
I think you've disabled
Right.
participants.
Over to the moderator. Pardon me?
That's right. It's coming up.
Okay.
So you've asked me to talk on a topic that I've never spoken publicly on. So I'm a nurse, you know, I know that like the back of my hand. But when I started to research about it, I realized that actually as a female in the space that I'm in, I know quite a bit more than I even gave thought to. So it's nice when someone asks you to kind of come out of your comfort zone. I won't go on to, because other speakers have talked about what a gender bias is. And I really wanted to talk about the effect on our mental health. You know, a lot of the times, you know, you hear about the weathering effect of racism. So as part of the Equality Act, the 9 protected characteristics, race is one of them. But gender as well is one that is weathering, and the discrimination or bias that women face has a detrimental effect on us in several ways. It causes anxiety. Sometimes for me as a person, I'm very honest in talking about how much I have faced in the NHS in particular, and the impact that it had on me and how I developed ways of coping. You know, when you look at the literature, you see about different ways that people are hindered by discrimination. So today is a day when we shine a light on it, but it's actually every day that we have to be fighting discrimination, fighting bias. It comes up when we least expect it. And that's why we have to be aware of the impact of it to ensure that the next generation won't have to suffer the way we have. In terms of the physical effects, you know, things like what people from our culture are suffer with, high blood pressure, you know, things like chronic pain. I myself have a chronic pain illness, and I can't tell you what impact discrimination and bias has played in terms of, you know, always being on the go. You know, sometimes in the healthcare, we talk about putting our armor on, and people who are from different sectors might recognize what that means. You get up in the day, you're going out into the working world, and you feel like you have to get ready for a battle. That takes a toll on you over a period of time. So it's important for us to call things out when we see bias. It's important for us to look after ourselves and remain healthy. In terms of discrimination, somebody talked about earlier about maternal discrimination, but also in terms of female genital mutilation as well. That's a form of bias and discrimination against women, and we must be able to call it out. Sometimes women's symptoms are dismissed as go, you know, I used to work with a neurologist, and whenever a female would come in and say they're having headaches, especially when it was a mother, he would be very dismissive until we had to pull him up on it. So he would say things like, oh, just go for 20 minutes of exercise 3 times a week and you'll be fine. But if men came in, he would be sending them for an MRI scan. He would be making sure that he takes it seriously. So he was from a different culture. I think he was from a European country. We had to enlighten him to the fact that actually we are not all the same, and women's views must be taken seriously. And sometimes because of women in certain health spaces, you get a delayed diagnosis. So these are things that we need to bear in mind. So if you have a health condition and you feel that you're being dismissed by your health practitioner, it's important for you to find someone who can maybe attend with you or help you to write questions when you're going back, so that you can come across that when the doctor says, oh, I think one doctor said to me when my son was very unwell, my son is 15 now, but when he was about 4, I took him to the doctor and I was worried about something, and they didn't know I was a nurse at the time, not that it should matter. And the doctor said, tell mommy she worries too much. Tell mommy she's just paranoid. And it was a condescending, patronizing tone that made me realize that even when we're advocating for our own children as women, we're seen as less than sometimes. And we need to be strong and to hold our ground. I really wanted to go on to the impact of why representation matters. So as a first generation immigrant, a nurse, yeah, in a space where actually it feels like the system is designed to break us as females, especially when you talk about intersectionality. I found it that it helps me when I can call out things on others' behalf. So I am an ally, and I expect others to be my allies as well. So things that we can do is when we experience discrimination, we need to not be afraid to talk about it in a very professional way, because it helps people who might be going through it and might not think that they can overcome it. And you know, that mental health, that suicide rate that we hear about, sometimes people feel alone. And by you talking about it and talking even when your voice shakes, it empowers others and enables them to also become overcomers. And eventually we become so united that we are overcoming together without even realizing. It's just part of the way we work, part of the way we grow our children. So for me, it's about promoting young girls, not being biased about colors. You know, as someone, as I think it was Fiona said earlier about, you know, roles in the house, it's really making sure that we check ourselves. For me, as an introvert, I'm a very quiet, if anyone knows me from childhood, they'll call me shy. I call it reserved. So I've had to kind of get out of my own way to ensure that I empower and inspire the next generation. So as Nelson Mandela says, as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give people permission to also shine the light. When we're in this space where we've been given blessings and opportunities to shine, we need to not be selfish with it. We need to tell people what we've overcome as women, the biases, the stereotypes. So that's just me as a Windrush Award finalist in 2018 for some research I was doing for older Caribbean patients who had strokes in hospital. And that's me in the middle at Westminster Abbey when I was selected as one of the scholars with Florence Nightingale's, you know, to empower the next generation. I just think it's important for us as well to really go into schools, to share careers, to ensure that we have people who don't feel limited because they're female or because of any other characteristics that they have. So I think it's important for us to, you know, use the media that sometimes can be powerfully used to keep us down, to also shine our light. So I'm all about people from diverse backgrounds, women, united and sharing our experiences. So in 2020, when I was promoted to this role as the regional head of nursing and midwifery at Health Education England, it made the news. It was quite sad that it made the news. Thankfully, it didn't make the news because I was female. It was because I was a Black female. It's like, what's going on? And to this day, you get people who are just thinking there is going to be a moment where they don't need her anymore because they've ticked the box. So when you're in these kinds of roles, it's important when people like Caroline contact me. I feel really inspired, Caroline, to be able to come and meet others who are on different journeys, yes, and to be doing some community service. So for me, the Jamaica Gleaner made a big fuss about this maroon heritage. Yes, it's that digging deep as a female, knowing that there will be oppression, there will be challenges, but as females on International Women's Day, it's important for us to shine our light and not be afraid to shine the light. We mustn't try to be super women because it's not possible. Yes, this thing about I can do it all and I'm perfect, it's not real. And what we see on social media is a facade. So I think it's just keeping it real, surrounding yourselves with people who have your back, who pick you up when you're on the floor, when you're feeling dejected and you want to give up. It's having that unity, that sisterhood that says, come on, we rally around each other and we make it together. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
You're welcome.
That was fantastic. Okay, I'm sure, you know, some of the things that you said, you know, in your presentation, some of them resonates with us. you know, being like a Black female in the UK, for example, you know, I have had my fair share. I've had my fair share of, you know, being this, you know, biases in the workplace. You can just imagine as a Jamaican teacher. And as a matter of fact, one of the main ones, which, and it's even up until recently, is my accent, because I try not to lose my accent, but I speak standard English. Even though when I'm in the classroom, the children, once there's one or two Jamaican children in the classroom, once they hear the accent, Miss, can you speak Patois? Can you speak Patois? And that's what they keep asking me to do, to speak Patois, speak Patois, speak Patois, because I love it. But I am, of a few times, I have been, you know, looked at or laughed at and looked on because, you know, of my accent. So I usually ask, am I speaking Spanish? No. Am I speaking standard English? Yes. You know, so these are some of the biases that we have to face based on our accent. But I am glad that I am able to speak standard English eloquently, but with my Jamaican accent. And that is one thing that I would never want to lose. But yeah, thank you so much. Are there any questions for Nicole? Well, we've got some comments here. Awesome, Nicole, your light is truly shining and inspiring others. Thank you, eloquently stated. Sharon says fantastic. Fiona says fantastic. And for Latoya, somebody says, well done. Thank you, Latoya, well said. So we'll save these chats so we can pass on these messages to Latoya as well. Thank you so much.
Caroline, can I say something quickly? Because I found it really interesting what Nicole was saying, because oftentimes as well, what we do, especially as Black women, because we can be articulate, we can represent in certain spaces, there is an element of tokenism that goes with what we do, because, you know, sometimes you have to hear the first Black, you know, X, Y, and Z to do whatever. And, you know, in a way, it's very good for us to represent, to show others, to allow for that. But there also sometimes can be a bit of it can be quite distasteful as well. And I just wanted to kind of throw out a question, even to you, Nicole, like, how have you managed to kind of navigate that? Yes, it's really good to, you know, amplify, put your head above the pulpit and represent for us. But I found when I'm being used on multiple platforms and, you know, when I look around, you know, I'm the only face that looks like mine. And I get why I have been positioned there and requested to come on. How do we kind of like navigate that arena? What would you say in that instance?
Well, for me, I can really relate to what you're saying. It resonates powerfully with me. I've been very clear. So where I work, because I enjoy my writing, I've written quite a few blogs internally in the organization, but I've been clear to them that I won't be the face of diversity in the organization. I won't be someone who they wheel out to say, look, we're very diverse and very fair, but then my brothers and sisters are suffering. So it's a fine balance between acknowledging the role and sometimes the burden, because it can feel burdensome. Yeah, because whatever you're doing, you're representing a whole people in an organization or an industry. But it's being very clear with those who are in leadership roles that we need allies. I need people who don't look, sound, or act like me to be as outraged and to not tolerate discrimination when I'm not in the room. So don't do it because Nicole's in the room. But yeah, you can really feel lonely. It can be lonesome. And sometimes you just think, I've done my bit. I can take a break. But when you hear, the key is to hear from people who are on the journey earlier, the part that you were on long ago. When you hear that what you went through 10, 15 years ago, they're going through the same thing. It stirs up that thing in you that you just think, as tired as I might be physically, I am going to trod on because of those ancestors who went before me and went through more than me. And while I might be tired and exhausted, I'm going to rest and come back stronger. But believe me, it does take an emotional toll, because sometimes you have pressures. My son's doing his GCSEs. He's struggling with the pandemic, the third year of disruption. So I have other things on my head. But it's important for us to just take it one day at a time, one step at a time, and to be united as sisters. You know, sometimes when you get it, it's like one person make it and another Black person is fighting in an organization. That can be the worst thing. It's like salt in a wound. It's like, you look and sound like me and you are the biggest oppressor here. And that is where you have to have some conversations off the air to say, I need to talk to you. And you have that conversation to say, actually, we are the same and you need to step up. I've had to do it with men. I've had to do it with men in the NHS where I've had to say, we need to talk. They wonder what's going on, because you transform from this lovely, placid female to one who says, look, I've earned my place. Do I look like someone who has been given it? I've earned it. So you will treat me with respect. I don't usually have to do it, but when I have to flip, it's the nanny in me, the maroon. I will flip and I will say, you will respect me. You don't have to like me, but you will respect me. Would you talk to me like that if I was white? And when I'm finished, they usually become my biggest allies. When I'm not there, they're saying, Nicole is the real deal. But you have to be in an emotionally stable place, because if I'm in my usual place, it's just tears. I can't. But when I dig deep and find that nanny spirit, yeah, it's unstoppable.
That's fantastic. Nicole, we have another question here. Nicole, how are you in your role bringing other Black women in nursing to elevate their role?
Well, I tell you, I set up in the year of the pandemic, 2020, I set up a consultancy. It's called, surprise, surprise, Maroon Mindset Unlimited. And I at the time was on a secondment where I was no longer wanted in the organization where I was. And it was made clear to me that I didn't fit. My values didn't fit, and I wasn't willing to compromise. So I set up this consultancy to make sure that I had money coming in. This is before I got this job. And through that, you know, I mentor and coach. And there is something in me that when someone reaches out on social media and sends me a direct message, and they always start out and say, I know you're very busy, but I just look at everything after the but. Someone is in need. So I do a lot of short mentoring. So if someone contacts me on social media, I'll say to my assistant, we need to book some time in with this person. And usually it's just listening, and you hear where they are, giving advice and telling them about how you'll support them, looking at personal statements when people apply for jobs. And I spend a lot of time correcting essays, like master's level essays. They send it to me. Even in the middle of the night, I'll be doing track changes just to help them, because I know what it feels like to be doing a course and you're doing it for the right reason. You have everybody around you expecting you to fail. We're not quitters, so I will go out of the way to kind of help them. But yeah, it's really just one-to-one where we really need to have a catch-up. And through COVID, it has been virtual. But the virtual space has connected us in a way that maybe we wouldn't have, you know, because maybe we wouldn't be doing this now 9 o'clock at night, be doing this. So there is good and bad in everything, but I am all about shining a light. So when the editors for the nursing journals contact me, and I'm tired of seeing my face, I'm just tired of them asking me the same questions. I'm thinking, no, I know somebody else who does something better. So I'm kind of getting people, but people are scared. So they have to trust me that I'm not going to send them into the lion's den, that if Nicole recommends it, they feel safe. So someone did a podcast recently, and they contacted me to say, Nicole, I would not have done it if it wasn't for you, but I enjoyed it so much. I want to do more. And that made me feel really happy, because, you know, you're putting people out, they're sharing their journey, doing podcasts. We need to be on the front page, and we need to kind of give other people the limelight. So I do my best, but it's we need to be in a state of readiness for when opportunities come as well. So I say to people, make sure your CV is up to date. I don't want to ask you for your CV and you're telling me you haven't looked at it. So I send my CV to them and I say, you don't have to do it like this, but it's just to give you an idea. have your CV up to date. So when an opportunity comes and somebody says, send your CV, you just say, here you go. Always ready.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nicole. We have a few more messages in the chat here. Somebody says, I thank Nicole for being so truthful. First, it starts with self, be truthful, and with a clean conscience comes that unconditional love, and then things will start working. And Marcia says, brilliant. Sharon Scott says, amazing. Eileen Morgan Forte says, I hear what you're saying, Nicole. Recently at the NHS Trust I work for, a post was advertised for a midwife role for the ethnic and LGBT community. A number of midwives went for the posts of all ethnicity, but it was a Caucasian middle class heterosexual midwife who was given the post. And then Sharon says, that's right.
Oh, I said that's right because
Can you
Nicole
hear me?
said to be ready.
Yes, okay. And then Annette says, thanks, Nicole. It's great to know you're giving your time to help others. Thank you so much, Nicole. And if anyone would like to contact Nicole or any of the speakers before, you can get in touch with me and I'll pass their details on to you. Now, our next speaker is Annika Russell. Now, Annika Russell is both the founder of Enjoy Early Years and Early Years Consultancy and inventor of the Jekka Play Furniture range, working with schools and nursery leaders to help them to begin an entrepreneurial journey in early education or develop their current early years business. She combines her 20 years of experience as a former early years teacher, inspector, and local authority advisor to positively impact practice and achieve the best outcomes for children. Annika is passionate about helping staff and leaders to evaluate their practice in a way that not only puts the unique child and their families in the center, but also provides children with opportunities to understand themselves and their community and connect with nature. Without further ado, I'll just, Annika, can you unmute, please? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Caroline, and thank you everyone, all the speakers that have gone ahead of me. You have all just been so amazing and inspiring. Yeah, very difficult to follow up. And I think there's been a lot that's been covered in everything you have all said. And I'll try my best not to I'm going to touch on obviously a few points because everything interlinks and we're all talking from a place of experience where we're all going through similar things as women. But the question that I'm going to address today is, you know, the challenges that women in the workplace face and how these can be changed. Again, I'm going to speak from my experience. I would consider myself a little bit of a rebel when it comes to the workplace, so I will speak on it. But at the same time, I have spent the majority of my career trying to get out of the workplace and work for myself so that I can work and live on my own terms. So I'm going to try and cover those challenges across 3 different areas. The first, for me, one of the problems that I found in the workplace was definitely the gender pay gap. I'm someone who works hard and puts everything in when I take on a role, and it used to really frustrate me, particularly working in the early years sector. You always see it's a predominantly female sector, and you know, we are normally the caregivers that take on those roles. But something that always frustrated me is that whilst we're the ones on the ground working so hard, it is the men that are in positions to tell us how much we should be earning and make the policy that informs the funding and the salaries of these women. So that's always been something for me in terms of the gender pay gap that has been extremely frustrating and something that I've hated to see in my sector. But looking at some of the stats around the gender pay gap, I was looking at them today on the official, the official national statistics, right? I was looking at them, and it said on there that it's taken 10 years for the gender pay gap to reduce by 25%. So it's not something they're committed to doing. It's not something we can afford to wait around to change. So we need to be really intentional and strategic about making our own opportunities. So one thing that I would say, and something that I've done, is for every time that I've been in a role and I haven't got the salary that I felt like I've deserved or wanted, what I've always done is use the opportunity or the time that I'm in that workplace to invest in myself, to pay myself in professional development, to ask questions, to learn, to mirror, to seek out the right people that can mentor me to success. Okay, so, and because of that, because I've been intentional in the workplace and used while I've been on the clock and I'm being paid the salary they choose to pay me, I've been upskilling myself. And that's what's enabled me to be running the 3 businesses that I do today. So one thing I would say is I'd encourage you, definitely tap into what else you can get within that workplace. What else would I say? So, yeah, and also, I mean, whilst I was working, I was setting up each of my side hustles, so if I wouldn't say that entrepreneurship is something I'm passionate about, but it's not necessary for everybody. I always dip in and out of it. As crazy as it sounds, I'm a mother of 2. I run 3 businesses, and I also sometimes am in employed work. Do you see what I do? What I have to do to just, gain the salary that I want to gain and live the life that I want to live. The second problem and challenge that I faced throughout my career is getting a seat at the table. Again, I was looking at the stats, and it says that 34% of women are in senior leader roles. Again, like, that balance isn't set to shift in any way soon, I don't think. So I think it's just about being fearless and doing everything that you can to not be intimidated by that balance or lack of that unbalance, should I say. Often, we talk about imposter syndrome, and when we do, it is always females that we're talking about. So I think, don't be intimidated by the spaces, but at the same time, as Nicole was saying as well, take care of your mental health. This whole strong woman trope, we have to be strong all the time. Not necessarily. You don't have to exist in toxic environments, So again, everything is about balance. If you are in a male-dominated environment, or you're in senior leadership and everyone else is male and you're the only female, if it doesn't serve you, leave, or again, find something that does serve you. Put a plan in place to kind of create the lifestyle that you want and prioritizes your happiness. And I think finally, the last challenge that I just wanted to touch on, that I found a challenge, is the policies that are in place in workplaces. That's been a massive challenge for me, particularly in regards to maternity pay and flexible working. In terms of flexible working, since it's taken a pandemic to kind of adjust that balance in terms of the possibilities of flexible working. So over these last 2 years, flexible working opportunities has been a lot better, but historically that was always an issue. Women were always affected by the inability to be able to work flexibly. But yeah, again, it is something that you're entitled to. Whilst it can be challenged, I would always say, and it's something that I always pushed to make sure that my voice was heard and my needs were met in the workplace. So again, I would say that, look for people. There's always going to be somebody has got it worked out somewhere. Do you know what I mean? I managed to find a manager who was working flexibly and was in a senior position. So I sought her out and I was like, well, what did you do? How did you navigate your way through to success? I asked, can I shadow you? You've got 3 children and you're like up here. How did you do it? So don't be afraid to ask questions. If you're not going to ever know this until you ask. Just ask, be bold. And yeah, that's one of the things I did to kind of learn how to make work for me, as well as me working for work. And again, I would say, you know, encourage your team. One thing that I did as well, I'm always, when I said that I was a rebel earlier, I always, if there's some kind of injustice, I will find a way to kind of prove a point, and I will do it, you know. So one thing I remember doing when I was working within the local authority was, I'm quite a solution focused person. So I worked within my team and I was like, right, you want to work only Mondays, you want Fridays off. I want to pick up my daughter every day. So how are we going to do this together? Let's create a strategy so that everyone gets what they want. We did it, we presented it. All of our projects were able to be met and completed. Nobody could argue with us, you know. So we went as an army and we put a proposal together to our senior team leader. She couldn't say nothing to us. Do you see what I mean? Because the job was getting done. So again, I would just say, just keep pushing, breaking the bias, knowing that, you know, we're worthy, we're qualified, and whatever, you know, go get it, go and do you, be you, and don't let anyone get you off track. So, but I'm gonna leave it there. But thank you, everybody. It's been an honor being here and speaking.
Thank you so much, Anika, for that. It was really interesting, really great to hear. You mentioned and you touched on some really great points there. For example, encouraging your team. I was a team member. I was a team leader, but up until October before I take leave. And sometimes as a Black person, it can be hard when you're leading a team which is of mixed ethnicity. It can be a little bit challenging at times because sometimes you can be looked upon, sometimes it's just the looks that you get or you can feel it sometimes. We as Black people, sometimes you can just feel it, or it's just like sometimes you ask for things, it's not coming, deadlines are not being met and things like those. And it's also good that you mentioned, work as a team and encourage a team. That is very good as well. And one of the things I'm a big advocate of is protecting our mental health. And Nicole mentioned it, you mentioned it again, we have to protect our mental health, because without that, if our mental health is not in good tact, then, we won't be able to work, to the best of our ability. So we have a few messages here in the chat. Sharon says, awesome again. Rosalie says, thank you, Anika. And okay, let me just go back a bit. And Nicole says, thank you, Anika, really good advice. Fiona says, thank you. Eileen Morganford, she says she took early retirement from the NHS, but did a course night, not for the trust, but for her. And she now works 15 hours per week just doing that role. And she has her own floristry business online as well. So thank you so much for that. Okay. Thank you, Nicole. So we've got our final speaker, and she's Sharon Scott. Now, Sharon P. Scott. Sharon is a mother to 13-year-old Jada and 15-year-old Roel. She's also wife to Ken Scott, who pastors NTCG Dayspring Church in Mitcham. Having enjoyed over 21 years in the NHS, where she has worked first as an operations manager until recently, where she transferred her skills to program management at NHS England and Improvement. She published her first novel, Orchids and Roses, in 2020, and recently published Visions from My Father in July last year. She was born in Jamaica. Sharon, as always, had a love affair with the written and spoken word. So much so, together with her husband, they found and manage the Jamaica Lit Foundation, which aims to make reading fashionable across inner city and rural areas of the island. But also, Sharon enjoys seeing her imaginations come alive on paper for people to either learn from or simply enjoy. Orchids and roses, a metaphor for one's innate ability to bloom again. Orchid after overcoming life's challenges. Roses, while visions from my father chronicles her journey with being led solely by the Heavenly Father from the age of 16. Sharon travels extensively from the USA to Africa, exploring the path of her potential characters while developing her own voice as a fiction writer with relatable characters who come alive as they pull the reader into their world and on their journey. Her writing is inspired by the Holy Spirit, her values and reflections on events which occur in her daily life. She's an advocate of social justice. She has a passion for people development. She uses her YouTube channel at s.p.scott to motivate and encourage everyone to seek to lead a life of purpose by embracing and exhibiting their full range of gifts and talents. Now, without further ado, I'll hand over to Sharon. Welcome, Sharon.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I'm just like, I wish I wasn't even about to say anything because everybody that's gone before been absolutely brilliant. You notice I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I was like, awesome, fantastic, wonderful. But anyway, hello, ladies. Good evening. Good evening, fellow strong, amazing, talented, gifted, blessed women. Happy International Women's Day. And together, we'll definitely break down this bias. Take a little while, but indeed, it can be done in Jesus' name. Well, forgive me if you're not a child of God. It's part of me. Okay, so dealing with gender bias is my question. Dealing with. And so when you think about dealing with, you're talking about how to manage, how to handle, how to cope with. And Nicole mentioned some of those. Discuss certain approaches, communicate, review. What sort of concerns come to mind? How do you treat it? You know, what are the things you consider when you think of gender bias? And these are just a few of what I would like to just pull out in the next 5 minutes that I've got. And of course, every day we meet and we hear of, I mean, particularly tonight, oh my gosh, totally blown away by all these amazing women that have presented. But at the same time, we still have to have what? An International Women's Day. Why? Because still statistics show, for example, if you hop over to the Harvard Business Review, you will see 97% of US companies have executive teams that fail to meet gender demographics of the labor force and population. Hence, you've got about 16% of them are, of women are on the executive teams. So the statistics speak for themselves. And so today is definitely an important time of reflecting on both the patriarchal society, the historic patriarchal society, but at the same time, see how far we've come and the journey we've got ahead of us, okay? So some may say, what it is, and some people have already explained that it's literally favoritism, unfair practice, partiality. And again, somebody will say, I wasn't aware that I was doing this. And we hear that a lot, particularly with the Harry and Meghan situation, Harry himself confessing to having not been consciously permeating bias, but actually he was doing what's called, exhibiting what's called unconscious bias. And you may say, where people get this behavior from? And it's either it's innate or it's learned. So what's happening here, particularly if you lean towards unconscious bias, this it can be deliberately skewed, the balance of justice against someone, or as I've said before, it can be unconscious. And what's happening is that the unconscious mind processes far more information than does the conscious mind. And why is that? Because unlike the conscious mind, the unconscious thought process is based on a quick summary of the background or culture or experiences. And from those quick summaries, we take decisions about people, places, and things. Unfortunately, on matters requiring a rational decision, that's where we tend to make the mistake. And many times, we're so absent-mindedly, and it's no excuse, but if we're going to deal with it, we have to be aware of it. the fact that our unconscious mind is quite fallible. And so we take these snap judgments about people and put them in categories based on, as you've heard about intersectionality, it could be gender, sex, religion, all sorts, and then you find yourself in this cobweb, very difficult to get out of. So from this, we see that it doesn't take long for a person or group to decide who is in and who is out. And so this same idea of our mental health is so important, because when you think you deserve to be in and you notice that you're deliberately blocked, it's hard. And you're constantly hitting yourself. You used to hear about a glass ceiling. Now that has been thrown out the window and it's now been replaced with a concrete ceiling. Well, so it appears in some areas. And so what then are we looking at in terms of how do we process this sort of society and context? We talk about what does it look like. And for an example, we can automatically just walk up to somebody and say, the doctor is coming to see you. And you're like, oh, when is he coming? And you're not aware, but because you've been fed this sort of language and conversation in our everyday speech, then we just automatically assume the doctor coming is going to be a man, which, I mean, you would think that by now with social media and everything, we would have moved along from there, but it still permeates our society. And then we think about, are women given credit in the same way as male counterparts? And again, if you look at the Harvard Business Review in 2019, the study shows that women feel less effective in any meeting where they're surrounded by men. Why? Again, because of the stereotypes and the societal construct. So again, us as women, we say, how do I deal with this? I'm sitting at a table with with a man across from me and fellow women beside me. So now you're not even just thinking about your complexion, but you're now also thinking, what's that man thinking about me? Am I dressed to show that I'm powerful enough to have this conversation? And then we start questioning our abilities. Are women overlooked for promotions or awards? And we know the answer to that. But in dealing with it, we have to think about what sort of metrics are we using in developing these measuring tools? What comprises what is weighing it? What sort of scale are we using to say this woman is eligible for a promotion as opposed to that man, or this woman versus that woman, or whatever you want to say? But we really have to take a look, if we're going to deal with it, with the metrics of measurement. And then we talk again about the workplace, physical environment, not just about the emotional environment, but the physical environment. Is it designed for women? Women are living longer. So are we thinking even about the menopause? Our employers, or we who do businesses, are we developing an office or an office space that caters to a woman, an older woman? Are we even providing facilities that allows for breastfeeding? So the physical environment itself can be a blocker to a woman even applying for that job. Because you'll say to yourself, okay, I'm still breastfeeding, I'm desperate for a job, but there's nowhere here for me to comfortable express. So I just won't apply. And then you look elsewhere. So not just the emotional environment that we have to deal with, but there's the physical environment, the way in which it's constructed. It's not conducive to some of the needs that women have. And then we look again, even the job descriptions. How are the wordings? It's unfortunate that someone should say words like supportive and collaborative and committed are feminine in nature. My goodness, I'm like, seriously? I'd love to know that my husband is collaborative. I'd love to know my son is committed. But by using those words, they're saying you're appealing more to the woman. And so you're more biased towards the woman. So if you were to look at words such as, active, adventurous, ambitious, challenging, competitive, confident, then you're speaking to a man. And that too can be seen as blocking a woman. So there's so many things that's right. There are so many things in our society. The wordings we have to listen out for, as if we don't have enough already. As Nicole said, my son is doing GCSEs as well. And my gosh, you have to listen out for those wordings. People talk about reading between the lines. And so you can become so overindulged in all that's happening that you can miss you. But in dealing with it, let's think, for example, of what Oprah did. The very first thing, because time is going, Oprah confronted it. So she met within her news years at this Chicago Tribune or wherever she was, it's on YouTube. And she found that, as the speaker just before me mentioned, the gentlemen, they're doing the same job and she was being paid less. So what she did, she confronted it. So you acknowledge it, you confront it. You're not going to be fighting with anybody. If you're a child of God, I'd advise you to pray about it. And then you go and you have a conversation about it. Make sure you arm yourself with facts. There's no time for generalizations now and said, oh, but it looks like, or it thinks, or I feel like. Facts. Arm yourself with facts. Okay. So she confronted it and she was given an explanation. She wasn't happy. She said, look, I don't care if he's got a mortgage and I haven't. We're doing the same thing. You need to pay me the same. End of story. Okay. So you've got facts. And then there's another thing that's called conduct peer-to-peer review. How are we going to deal with it? We can deal with it by talking about it, talking to each other about it. I mean, I remember when I was doing my MBA, I was surrounded by men. And we would meet at this hotel, Slough, Marriott Hotel in Slough. And all these men throwing their weight around and carrying on. And I'm thinking some of the questions that they would ask me, like, how did I get on my course if it was sponsored by the organization or something like that? And I'm thinking, I don't need to justify how I get on the course with you, whether because I'm Black or I'm a woman or whatever it is. I have no time for this. And I had to literally just, when we went outside for a drink at the bar, then I spoke to him about it. And I said, this was how your question made me feel. As a woman, I don't want to play the race card, but I know that was part of it. He's a German guy, but I did, have a word. So confronting it, conduct peer-to-peer monitoring. So when you hear your peers, whether fellow women or men, saying certain things, you need to be able to say to them, actually, do you know this can be seen that way? Or it could come across as such and such. And even sometimes when you're having reflective practice or reflective moments, think within yourself. Today, I met so-and-so, and this was the conversation we had. Is it possible that by my comments, this person could take it that way? So peer-to-peer is really important. Slow down the pace at which decisions are taken. And that goes back to unconscious bias, because it's taken in such a quick, fast moving microwave sort of way, if you want to say that, right? So you need to slow yourself down, and I advise people to slow yourself down before you take certain decisions, because within that moment, you can really skew the balance. Okay, so we have to slow ourselves down. Look at the data. Again, many times people want to make you feel as if it's in your head. So look at the data. If you're managing a set of people, if you're in a company, an organization, look at the data, look at it globally, look at your organization in relation to, for example, many people in the NHS. Look then at your trusts in relation to nationally. Okay, what does the staff survey say? What, just speaking anecdotally, what are people saying? So then you know anecdotally and you know factually what's happening. But when you go to present your conversation, it's very important to arm yourself with what the data is saying. I've already heard the word allyship, and absolutely 100%. Again, I go back. You can tell I'm a Harry and Meghan fan, forgive me. But Meghan talks a lot about Harry being a feminist. Well, apart from that, but he comes on board and he says, well, I'm an ally. I support my wife with her endeavors and I see her as an equal. And at the same time, I'd like to help to empower her and other women in whatever way I can by joining the conversation. And I'd love my husband to do that as well. Okay. So allyship, as we're talking about gender, not just race, but in terms of gender, try and get the men on board, or, sort of call them out and be happy. Not happy. Say to them, thank you for speaking up on our behalf. Thank you. We recognize that it must not have been easy because you'll probably be the odd one out. So there you go. And in the meantime, what will I say to each and every one of us is, listen, for example, I sit on a board. Well, it's a mixture, but I'm the only Black person. And then sometimes it can be uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable. The conversations, the innuendos. But you know what? You need to own that seat. Okay, women, you own that seat. I'm so happy that Nicole said prepare yourself, because opportunities come knocking. Prepare yourself. I totally concur. But when you get that opportunity, or you create that opportunity for yourself, as Tyler Perry says, don't wait for people to build table. You try and build your own table, as the previous speaker said. Build that table, invite others to the table, and you own it, because we are just as capable. Our voice is just as valuable. Okay, and we're not here to play, or to whatever the word is, to go along with the status quo. We're not here to make trouble. We're not aggressors. We are women. We're strong women, valuable women with thinking abilities and capabilities just the same as men. And so we're not just only going to believe in equality, but we are going to have to work towards equality.
Okay, thank you so much, Sharon. That was really inspiring, interesting, and thought-provoking as well. Thank you so much. And let me just go to the chat here. And Olayinka, she says, brilliant and very informative presentation. Oh, thank you. Eileen says, wow, powerful viewpoints, Sharon. Nicole says, so true. Sharon, powerful presentation. And Beverly Walcott Douglas says, true points. Annika says, 100%. An organization I work for recently changed the language they used to advertise new roles to make them more appealing and inclusive to women. And Eileen, again, she says, sometimes by not speaking up and keeping quiet, you could be deemed to agree with the status quo. Carol G says, spot on. And Annika said, absolutely, as the saying goes, silence is complicity. So I just want to say thank you so much to all our speakers. And before we all, can I ask the speakers for their final words, if they've got any final words? Can I ask Fiona if you've got any final words for breaking the bias? For example, can you just give us at least one example how we can overcome at least one of the challenges which we are faced with as women, whether it's at home, in the workplace, or just women out there in society in general?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, in listening to everybody, like some people give an analogy, it's like fish, where you have to kind of take out the bones and sift what's for you. So there's been 5 speakers on here today. Each one of us would have resonated with somebody, whether it's workplace, whether it's in the household, whether it means that you're just going to start saying to your son, you sort out the darks, you start folding away the clothes, you start, putting on the potatoes or whatever, or, boiling the peas, if you're still boiling peas nowadays. But, it's the little things that we have to be able to apply in our lives, because sometimes we can come to these type of events and be full because each of us have taken from every one of the speakers, but then come tomorrow you're like, okay, so where do I start again? That was a whole heap of information here. You've got Anika, he's got 3 businesses. Some women might be thinking, I'm struggling with my day job and my 1 child. She's got 3 businesses and a job. Don't compare yourself to anyone, because sometimes, like I said, we have to reflect on who we're looking at in that mirror and be satisfied with self. So I would say to everybody on here, whatever it is that resonated with you, start with something that is doable, tangible, realistic. Write yourself a little goal. Hopefully you guys have been taking some notes as well, and just work on, don't overdo it, because sometimes we can overdo these things. Somebody right now might be thinking, okay, Nicole said let me get my CV tonight. You're doing your CV, not to say, that can be on your to-do list. Do you understand? So don't overdo it, because there's a lot of information. It's meaty, it's hearty stuff. But take what's for you, sift through those bones and think, actually, I'm going to start with home. I'm going to start with household first, and then I'm going to work my way to there, and write yourself a little list of your to-dos and go from there. My name's Fiona Small, and I'm handing over to the next speaker.
Oh, that is amazing. Fiona, can I just jump on the back of what you said there? Because that is just so important, everything you've just said there. Now, I just want to say, you mentioned about me having 3 businesses and working. to put context around that, that's 20 years. That's not something, this is not IG life. This is not Instagram, everything instant. That's 20 long years of grinding, of, you know, being broken to the point that I've cried, that I've had to go to the toilets and just cry because I've worked in such toxic environments, you know? So it's not like, don't be fooled by what you're seeing out there. One thing that I would also add is about we spoke a lot about mental health and prioritizing that. One thing that I always am very intentional and conscious to do is to have 3 things where I'm focusing on mind, body, and soul. So in terms of my mind, I'm a Christian, so I you know, go into prayer to kind of, you know, cleanse my mind and keep my strength. In terms of my body, I've always make sure I go out for a walk. I love walking, and clean eating as well. And in terms of my soul, I really connect with music, whether it be gospel, anything to uplift me. And there's loads of things that I switch it up sometimes. Sometimes it's just affirmations where I have to just meditate on a word and just say some positive things. I've got, like, I'm in my office now, and, you know, I put up different things that inspire me. So mind, body, and soul daily have something where you are nourishing those every single day, is what I would say, because it's hard. It's absolutely hard. And yeah, no, I'll leave it there because I know it's getting late, but yeah, thank you.
Is it my turn? So for me, I think what we've heard today is that we come from different backgrounds, but we're on a journey, and it's nice to have touch points like these where we share and learn from each other. For me, takeaway is, the first one is to be kind to yourself, because you can't feed from an empty cup. So just take time to be kind to you, to really be careful about who you allow into your space, even your virtual space. Because sometimes you can be on a journey doing well and people can get in there and detract you from your purpose. I think taking life one day at a time is really key, and not trying to run before you can walk. As Aneka said, it is a journey, and the journey sometimes is more important than the destination. You learn so much about yourself on the journey. That's actually, sometimes when you get to the actual goal, there is an anticlimax, because you're just thinking, I've learned so much. It's the journey that I'm going to take away with me. And finding your why, your purpose in life, your God-given talent, your destiny, your blessings, and being ready to share that with others as well. And to really be humble in your success. As I say, don't let success get to your head or failure get to your heart. It's just keeping your feet on the ground as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Sharon, thank you so much.
I had to laugh because every time she speaks, there's something just so funny about the way she says things. That's just amazing. Oh my God. Yeah, that's right. Me time. Absolutely, 100%. I have got this YouTube channel where I talk about come away with me, and spending time with you. It's absolutely important. But one thing I always say to people when I do any sort of mentoring or coaching is about the importance of reading. And I'm absolutely passionate about that. I think sometimes we get left behind because we are behind in our information. And somebody did say to me on the chat just now that unconscious bias is not the term anymore. Well, sorry, I literally did some research on the Harvard Business Review, and that's the exact word that's being used. So I am not aware that unconscious bias is not a word anymore. But I do say that reading is it helps to prepare you so much, and you feel less when you're in a room or in a space with others that you don't belong, because you sort of find this time to get this confidence within yourself that I do know what I'm talking about, and what I add, what my voice will add, will be valuable. So that helps to build your confidence as well.
Okay, thank you so much. And if we were to, say if some of the viewers here tonight wanted to contact speakers, as I said before, you can get in touch with me, and then I could forward their details on to you. Or if the speakers would just quickly want to say to say, or you can contact me? What would you like? Seeing that we have Nicole, I can see Nicole right there. Would you like to share with us where they can contact you? Maybe your social media handle?
Yes, I was going to put it in the chat, my Twitter handle in the chat. I'm usually on Twitter more than other social media. I think it's important to use social media to flatten the hierarchy. So it's good to have some conversations that sometimes you don't get to have to escape the gatekeepers. So Twitter, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you. And Fiona, Annika, and Sharon, will you do that as well, please? Will you put it in the chat? And I'm just going to share something quickly with you. And moderator, can I have, okay, share screen. Thank you. So, okay. So Mother's Day is Sunday, the 27th of March. Sorry, it should be 2022. Sorry for the typo there. Now, as you know, I'm one of the founders of Lee Carla Natural Skincare Products. So we're giving you all 20% off your purchase for Mother's Day. And the code that you need to use is BREAKING22. BREAKING22, 20% off any purchase for Mother's Day. And our website is www.leecarla.co.uk. And if you're not following us yet, please follow us on Instagram, social media, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who have joined us tonight. Sorry, let me just stop here for a minute. Thank you. I just want to say thanks to everyone who have joined us tonight. To all the speakers, thank you so much. It was really exciting and very inspiring, thought-provoking. And I'm sure, like, be kind to yourself, have me time. I'm going to invest in some of those things more. And as Annika, she has 3 businesses. I myself, we have 2 businesses. And I'm a full-time teacher, but I'm on leave at the moment. So some people used to ask me, how do you do it? I said, where do you find the time? I said, you make the time. There are 24 hours in a day. When I come home in the evenings, cook, then I tutor, and I still have to make products. So, and this is me and Leighton juggling things, and my sister is here. We are working together, and Latoya, she's a tech person behind the website and everything. Anything to do with there, so it's her. So I just want to say thank you to everyone. Ladies, happy International Women's Day to you all. Remember that you're queen, you're empresses, and just go forth. And as we said, I think it was Nicole mentioned that have your facts, have your, if you want to go, if you think something is not working right for you, make sure you have evidence, your evidence, begin to document everything and take it forward. That is the way forward. I just want to say thanks again to everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I just want to say good night and thank you again. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks
Well,
a lot.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. And we look forward to see you all next year.
It was real good.
Thank
Bye. Bye.
Thank you all.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.